So it's come to quite a moment when somebody in the West has to ask a devout Muslim like yourself to tell us about the Islamist threat in the UK. Can you just describe to me the Islamist threat here in the UK and in the West, what the dangers are, and what, in your view, we could possibly do about it?
They use your democracy to abuse your democracy. And the way they do that is they use your democracy, freedom of rights, to censor your right. So now they know the game.
What the Muslim Brotherhood is, how it works, and how it tries to take over society gradually.
The Muslim Brotherhood are the political version of Al-Qaeda. Hamas is the armed forces of the Muslim Brotherhood. Literally, this is in their manifest. This is the time that you should start questioning. It's like, what's happening next? What's going to happen next is what you witness right now. British people from various backgrounds are leaving Britain. Why? Because it's no longer safe. This used to be heaven.
In the UK Muslim community, how much of it do you think is controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood?
We're speaking at least about 20% of the mosques and the schools, the Islamic schools, they are fully controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood. Charities, they are number one there. They literally control almost 90% of the charities.
So you're saying the Muslim Brotherhood in Britain controls 90% of the charities, 20% of the mosques. How much of the politics? Hello, and thank you for joining us on The Brink. I'm Jake Wallace-Simons. Andrew Fox is off this week and sends his apologies. Today's guest is the Emirati journalist, author and political strategist Amjad Taha. Amjad, the author of The Deception of the Arab Spring, first came to prominence as a sharp commentator on Gulf and Levantine affairs, building a formidable presence across pan-Arab and international media channels for his fierce critiques of political Islam and regional proxy networks. In recent years, of course, his influence has gone global. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it, and leave a comment. We love to know what you think. If you're listening on audio, give the podcast 5 stars. And if the UK economy of your listening experience is being held back by the paywall of the Labour Party, whoever's leading it, now would be a great time to subscribe. Paid subscribers, or Brinksters and Brinkies, get to listen with no adverts and can also join a monthly question and answer session with Andrew and myself on Substack Live. For the price of a Labour membership a month, give or take, you can become part of this month's conversation. Sign up now at thebrinkpodcast.substack.com. Now, without further ado, I present Amjad Taha on The Brink. Well, Amjad Taha, thank you for joining us on The Brink.
Thank you for having me.
So it's come to quite a moment when somebody in the West has to ask a devout Muslim like yourself to tell us about the Islamist threat in the UK. But that's where we've got to.
Yeah.
Can you just describe to me, the Islamist threat here in the UK and in the West, what the dangers are, and what, in your view, we could possibly do about it?
Well, it's unfortunate, and it's you can't understand, like, when some of the Western trying to be more Muslim than I am and more Arab than I am. You know, it's quite devastating to try to understand. Why are you trying to be more Muslim than me? Why am I banning the Muslim Brotherhood, for example, in the UAE, while the Muslim Brotherhoods are activists and running your street, and right now radicalizing your university in Britain? Those prestigious universities that the people used to come from all around the world to study at, to get knowledge, right now are a place of riots and radicalization. There are students who come in from all around the world. They get to be radicalized in this university, in British universities, or even some of the Irish universities, which it puts the question: am I sending my student, when I send a student from for example Dubai, and he comes back as if he was in Taliban campus, it puts a lot of questions. I send them to learn knowledge, to be people of knowledge, and to get to know more about science, about law, medicine, and so on. They come back to know about Islamism and how we should be anti-Semites and so on.
Have you seen that amongst people who've studied here and come back to the
not just the UAE, absolutely, in various countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and all the places where these students come back as very radicalized. hugely. And you expect them to come as a lawyer, as a doctor. It comes as a doctor that wants to treat Bin Laden only. And the rest are all criminals, and the rest are all people out of religion. And the Jews, he comes as a lawyer who is happy to defend Sinwar, the kidnapper of baby Cafe, rather than defending the baby and his family.
Yeah, we've had doctors in the UK saying they wouldn't treat Israelis if they came to the emergency room to be treated. They just let them die.
It's a dark age for the British civilization and the Western civilization to see such. In this, I mean, not treating an Israeli or not treating a Jewish person, and it gets as far as attacking a Jewish restaurant in London. A Jewish restaurant in London, excuse me. So what is the problem here? It has nothing to do with the state of Israel. A Jewish restaurant, it means a Jewish person, for him to consume a certain food, he's attending that restaurant, correct? So are you having a problem right now with the stomach of a Jew? Or what the Jews shouldn't eat? And this is 1936.
Yeah, and also, frankly, I mean, even if it is about the state of Israel, even if it's an Israeli restaurant, so what? I mean, yes, Israel's fighting wars, but they're fighting jihadi enemies. I mean, there's lots of other countries who have restaurants of their nationalities in this country that people don't have a problem with going to.
The Iranian, the Islamic regime of Iran.
Yeah, boycott an Iranian restaurant.
They don't. In fact, when the Islamic regime of Iran start targeting all those Arab countries, all those Muslim countries, Arab countries were attacked by the Iranian Islamic regime with drones, rockets. And the Islamic regime of Iran did not target American bases or just American army or any of that. It was targeting civilians, hotels, hospitals, schools, universities. It targeted a child as 10 years old, baby girl. She was Iranian, living in Kuwait, running away from the Islamic regime in Iran, finding a job there. And then the Islamic regime of Iran sent a drone to kill her, a baby girl. And others, and people from various minorities and background. While my country, UAE, was protecting 200 nations living side by side next to each other, with the synagogue, the church, and the mosque right by next to each other, and protecting that peace, prosperity, and coexistence in the Middle East, being the light and the hope in the Middle East, Iran was attacking that.
Yeah, Iran attacked you more than Israel during the war.
Absolutely, with more than 3,000 drones and missiles, rockets, and targeting all civilians. But the question was this: where were those British Muslim MPs writing the parliament voices? I was expecting to hear a condemnation. Probably not in the parliament, that's too optimistic, but maybe a tweet, maybe just a post. X may be too viral. Facebook, it's old style. A statement on LinkedIn, anything from those, a statement for yourself, just put it and let us know. Just send it by email, Okay, not a condemnation. Brother, we stand with you. Just that. Stand with another Muslim brother who was in the holy month of Ramadan being attacked by an Islamic regime in Iran. I thought you cared about children. I thought you cared about hospitals. I thought you cared about the terminologies such as genocide. Iran wanted to commit a genocide against the whole people in the Middle East. It started on the 7th of October through its proxies, which is the Muslim Brotherhood in Gaza, that's Hamas. But then Iran continued on the 28th of Feb, where it targeted mosques. Sheikh Zayed Mosque was targeted by drones. We were praying there. We saw the drones. Thank God we have a great army that protected us, dismantled and destroyed those drones and missiles. But without that, what would have happened? Iran wanted to commit a genocide. We did not hear one condemnation, one protest in London, in any city in Britain, a country of values and morals that stand with the humanity, that respect and is against the war. And we are all against the war that Iran declared on us. And we were not involved in this war. But Iran started striking us. So where were those MPs, British Muslim MPs? Condemnation or a letter to the government asking them to stop or close the Iranian embassy, the Islamic regime in Iran embassy. But at least we've seen from the reports that the MI6 put out that there were Iranian intelligence working here who tried to target British citizens or British Iranian citizens. If this is the case, we expected at least you call the ambassador of Iran and you say you're not welcomed here, or maybe take off a holiday to Tehran until the war finishes. None of that happened. None of this has happened in the country. So what do you expect from us to do? It's like we're trying to understand where is Britain heading. And this is the Britain that is not even in the Abrahamic Accord. Why? It should have been Britain in the Abrahamic Accord. This is Britain that the Middle East known and has been there. And we can connect to. It wasn't the United States of America. And why hasn't Britain been involved? Not in the peace, not in the protection of its own interest. It was UAE protecting British citizens from being attacked from those drones who were living in the UAE. They were protected. While Starmer's government at that point, and I'm sorry to say that, he was sending them an airplane to come up with, but they had to fill a form that he was asking them how much you get for taxation. At the moment that he wanted to get them to Britain, he still wanted to know how much they earn.
Oh, when he was evacuating.
Evacuation, yeah.
Questions about tax. Yeah, that's quite
funny. In evacuation moment, you're asking for tax. I mean,
well, he needs the money. That's too funny. But okay, so I mean, this is really quite bleak. I mean, to see it through the eyes of somebody such as yourself, reflecting back on us, and particularly when you think about how silent the British Muslim community and British Gaza MPs have been about Islamism, jihadism against Jews, but not just against Jews, also against the Emirates and other allies. Total silence. In fact, support for the Islamic regime and Hamas we've seen all over Britain.
I've seen Hezbollah's flag and the Islamic regime flag right in front of the British Parliament.
I mean, it's shameful.
Yeah. So
how did things come to this point? Why is it like this?
It's because you allowed and you are allowing those Islamists to grow. And how it grows, they use your democracy to abuse your democracy. And the way they do that is they use your democracy, freedom of rights, to censor your right. The moment right now I'm speaking on this podcast, you will be attacked, and so would I. They try to make it expensive to criticize them or to expose them. So they will bring lawyers. They will make so many cases against every term and terminology that I use in this podcast or you use. They want to make sure that you, as a person, believes in democracy. Also, know that if you dare to criticize the Islamist, they will use your own rules and regulation to make it expensive for you to criticize them and to censor your right to speak. So now they know the game. Now they know the rules, but they are setting their own rules. 1. 2, they are right now using the universities. So all those universities right now, British universities, they go through the Muslim Student Union. And there is a lot of Islamic student society and union in the universities. They create their own institute, and then they try to separate the Muslim student from the rest of the other student, making their own communities, their own contact, and then they feed them with their own propaganda. This is when the Muslim Brotherhood leaders, some of them are banned in the Middle East, and even their books is literally asking for jihadism, but it's been spreaded in British universities and mosques. And they start lecturing people about, for example, they justifying the 7th of October, the reaction to the 7th of October. And then you see a student that came to university to study ends up a student that wants to blow himself, or at least hate another citizen who's a Jew, or Christian, because right now they even see the Christians as alliances, as friends of the Jewish people, or anyone who thinks of peace and prosperity. If you see, they do not call for peace. They call for war and killing of others, or genocide of others. From the river to the sea says it all. But that's aside. So they use the universities. They use the schools, the Saturday school. In Saturday school, children go to those Saturday schools. They've been taught about jihad.
Like a madrasa.
Madrasa, yes. It's called madrasa, or the Saturday school, because they use the weekend to get into the student, or what they have, the after school ones, which starts about 5 p.m. upwards. Those 2 hours that we think is just a weekend or just 2 hours, it radicalized people and it radicalized people. In fact, go on check about those who did the 2005 bombing. They attend those madrasas, and they have attended those, and some of them, they were part of the Islamic society, and those who in universities, and those who joined the ISIS. There were some of them attended, and I am mentioning the names here. I don't know, you can cut that, censor it somehow, but some who attended certain mosques in Birmingham, be it the Islamic and other mosques in Sheffield and in Manchester, and they later on joined ISIS. And if you go online right now and listen to all lectures, not skip through them, because it's very important, and also they use the Arabic as a language to censor sometime and change the meaning and so on. But we are the Arabs, we know the Arab literature, and we know exactly what they telling the audience and the people that attend those lectures. They radicalize them. They make them hate anything called Semite or Jew. They hate them. They make you hate any government, by the way. So they want Britain that does not stand with its friends. For example, the United States of America, when it comes to in a war the epic operation against the Islamic regime in Iran. They want a Britain that does not stand with its friends, such as people in the Gulf when they went through the Iranian aggression. They want a Britain that goes silent against the Islamic regime. They want a Britain that does not go and counter the terrorists. They want a Britain that does not ban the Muslim Brotherhood. They want a Britain, in fact, they want Britain-stan, not Britain.
Now, just to pick up on one comment that you just made, you mentioned some names of mosques that have been instrumental in radicalization, and then you said we can edit that out because of legal reasons.
Yeah.
Now, this strikes a chord with me as a journalist because I know what you're talking about. So just to make this clear to our audience, I mean, it may be that we do need to edit those names out for legal reasons, but the reason for that is not because they're not doing it. They're doing it. I know they're doing it. You know they're doing it. They know we know they're doing it, this radicalization, but they know how to use the legal system to prevent scrutiny of the radicalization that's taking place there. And it takes place in the media for silencing scrutiny of radicalization. It takes place all over the place, using our freedom of speech, our libel laws are against us.
Yeah, to censor your right to speak. They use your rules to censor you. 1, 2, they want to make it expensive for anyone to criticize them. There have been various cases where literally a channel or a program decided, you know what, we don't want to go appeal and another appeal and so on, and the lawyers and the expenses that you want to pay and so on. And you know what, just allow it. Probably just cut it. We don't want that headache. No, you do not need that headache. No, you need to fight back for the sake of civilization of yours, for the sake of community of yours, the society of yours. Today you're quiet. They make you pay. The next day they are in the House of Lords. They are MPs. They are councillors. Are you not seeing that they're taking over your street? Was Britain today? You know what? When I speak to a British person in the underground as I was coming here, or in a taxi or in anywhere in Westminster, a British person right now, when he wants to speak about good days, he says, you know, the old good days, old good days. Old was gold. Old was good. While right now, they don't speak about the right now. They hesitate to speak about right now because, you know, with also the whole censorship over social media, it's changing, and they don't know the new Britain. It's really hard. Yes, we do understand the British politics is sometimes just like the British weather, but
Always terrible.
well, you don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
You just have to have that umbrella, you know, the shadow. Anyways, but it's really hard. I honestly, you know when it's really bad, when you know how when it's bad. I've met recently a British Jewish family that moved to Dubai. And I was like, why move into Dubai? You know, in Britain, democracy, rights, all that exist. And so why move into Dubai? They said, here we can coexist. Right now, they said, we wake up and our house is vandalized, our garden is vandalized, our business has been attacked. And they cannot show their kippah, they cannot show... You cannot put a kippah right now and go in the various areas here in Britain. There's certain areas, and again, I don't want this program to go through all censorship, but there are certain areas, literally, a person cannot wear their kippah or their traditional Orthodox Jew identity and show it.
Yeah, I mean,
well, they can do that in the souk, in a bazaar, in anywhere, in a mall, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Fujairah, in Sharjah, everywhere in the UAE, they can show that. The Jewish community there is thriving and is growing and is creating all those businesses that they have, while in Britain they're running away and they're hiding. That tells you, where are you? How do you deal with anti-Semitism? Why has Britain reached to a point where it's dealing with anti-Semitism as an opinion? While in the UAE, we deal with anti-Semitism as a crime. Anti-Semitism is a crime, it's not an opinion. And that line has been crossed in Britain. And when you allow that line to be crossed, the next is a terrorist attack that you should be expecting knocking on your door.
Now, we've talked about what's happening here quite vividly. Let's go to the why. I think what we're talking about really is the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And we had on this podcast Sir John Jenkins quite recently, who did a very important review or report exposing the Muslim Brotherhood in 2015.
Correct.
With another distinguished civil servant called Charles Farr, who's sadly passed away since. That report, some of it is secret, some of it is publicly available. The publicly available stuff shows that the government has known exactly what the Muslim Brotherhood is, at least from 2015 when this report has come out.
Correct.
Can you just refresh our memories about what the Muslim Brotherhood is, how it works, and how it tries to take over society gradually?
Well, when it comes to the history of theirs, we can go on. We need more than one podcast about it. Yeah. But Cengiz explained it very, very well. And when it came to the Muslim Brotherhood, how if you become a Muslim or a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, you're more likely to be radicalized. And if you're radicalized, you're more likely to commit a terrorist attack. In their history, they have done so. Yes, they started in Egypt. Yes, they want, literally, the Islamic, it's like the ISIS, but the political version of ISIS. You know, ISIS right now, or Al-Qaeda, need a political version. The Muslim Brotherhood are the political version of Al-Qaeda. Hamas is the armed forces of the Muslim Brotherhood. Literally, this is in their manifest. So Muslim Brotherhoods are the political spokesperson, let's say, of all those armed forces, of radical groups. A person that exposes himself and kill others, he needs a politician to defend him. That's a Muslim Brotherhood. He needs a scholar to be in the mosque and speaks, defending his crime. That's a Muslim Brotherhood. When someone goes and again, as I said earlier, kidnapping an 8-month-old baby, kafir, he needs someone to defend him. That lawyer of his was the Muslim Brotherhood. They justify the crime of all the radical groups. Now, their idea is dismantling all the Muslim countries and creating their own Khilafah. And the Khilafah is not just in the Muslim world, but also all over the West.
That's like a caliphate.
Yeah. Caliphates, yes. And their caliphates, or the Islamic state that they want, they believe that it's, and they have a plan for that, a strategy for that. They believe is dismantling the Western civilization and society. It goes through steps. Now, it starts through the culture, and then the civic part of it, and then you move to politicians, and then later on we use the last part of it is we use the force and action. One point or another, they have used the same thing. And I give you an example. In Gaza, for example, they started, the founder of Hamas, he started literally with building charity.
Sheikh Yassin.
He built a charity. He started with charity and helping hospitals. And that charity later on grows up, start making enough funds, helping others, recruiting people, moving them to certain universities and schools. Is this ringing bells right now? Controlling some protest in the street. You recruit enough people, you move them around, and this is when you call that. Now you're controlling the mind of the people, you're changing the culture, you're getting some of their sympathy. Now is the time that you go for the forces and you recruit for forces and so on. But you don't do it at an early stage. You build, you say and you shout from now, from the river to the sea, until it paints the picture in the mind of his or hers that this is the right thing to say and do. So how do you do this now? He leaves it to the student when he graduates. How do you do this? You're going to be an engineer at a British company? Well, there's 3-4 Jews there. One is from Israel. Make sure he doesn't go to Israel next time. How is he going to do that? I leave this to your imagination. Yes, it is that dangerous. And yes, it is the way I'm saying how naive you think the idea is. Well, guess what? It's more naive to not think of the actions that you are allowing right now, or the atmosphere that you're creating for them. You created this atmosphere. The moment right now where you have a sort of no Muslim zones right now, non-Muslim zones in some part of Britain, where literally you will hardly find one person from a different religion or from a different background. This is the time that you should start questioning. It's like, what's happening next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next is what you witness right now. Millionaires are leaving Britain. British people from various backgrounds are leaving Britain. Why? Or leaving various countries. Why? Because it's no longer safe. This used to be heaven. I used to come here to holiday. Right now I cannot. I'm sorry. It tells me there is signs, well, there's signs outside. It says, don't wear this, don't have this. Don't. It's like, serious? We're not in a third world country.
So what you're painting a picture of how the Muslim Brotherhood works, which is gradual. It begins with, like you say, charities, Islamic education.
Well, you have some of the charities here already, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it plays on the tolerance, our instincts for tolerance here in the UK, to push it further and further, our ignorance of Arabic, ignorance of the Muslim Brotherhood. And then you start to hear slogans like Free Palestine, that becomes normalized. From the river to the sea, that becomes normalized. Then globalize the Intifada, that becomes normalized. Then death to the IDF, that becomes normalized. And that's a sign of the radicalization of not just Muslim people, but society as well, starting on the left and moving outwards.
They do not want a free Palestine. Freeing Palestine is by coexisting with the other side, which is Israel. What they created is Israeli phobia. And then if you criticize them, they say Islamophobia. The term Islamophobia, they created that terminology is just to prevent others from criticizing the radical Islamist. The moment you criticize the radical Islamist or the radical Muslim Brotherhood or any members of Hezbollah, it becomes Islamophobia. Before you do that, they are already practicing Israel-phobia. When it comes to the freeing the Palestinian, you got to free the Palestinian from the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, which created the 7th of October, which created all that stress and a moment of war in Gaza. You care about the Palestinian. You don't say from the river to the sea, because there is from the river to the sea, where is the two-state solution that the whole international community believes in? If you care about freeing the Palestinian, you got to de-radicalize the education system that's in Gaza and the West Bank. The education system that has been radicalizing generations. And also, when it comes to the Israelis, we also got to de-radicalize various, be some of the institutions or some of the officials on what they say. But in terms of the education system, if it does not get de-radicalized, just like how the German Nazi was de-radicalized, or Japan after the war and the use of the nuclear, if it doesn't get de-radicalized, then we are back to square one again, and all this 7th of October is just on postponed.
And the next step, obviously, is force, as you said, that terrorism comes in the Muslim Brotherhood playbook, not first, it comes last. Once the structure is built to support that. How do you think, if you were to give advice to Britain, how do you think we could begin to undo this influence of the Muslim Brotherhood?
Well, I gotta say it from our perspective, from my humble perspective. In the UAE, we banned the Muslim Brotherhood. Full stop. Ban the Muslim Brotherhood. There is no tolerance for a person that's intolerant. It doesn't tolerate anybody else, and you want to tolerate them. They're against tolerance, and you want to tolerate them. So, ban the Muslim Brotherhood and question all their schools and the mosque that they have at this stage, at this point, which is bringing only terrorists into your society and community, or bringing crimes, or bringing violence to you, or just separating the community and destroying the community. Banning the Muslim Brotherhood is a solution. Not doing so in the name of democracy, it only will harm the democracy itself. It will harm your community. It will destroy it, and it weaken Britain. Britain with the Muslim Brotherhood existence right now is weaker. They have, and they changed it right now. Recently, my country, UAE, has banned some organizations, Muslim Brotherhood organizations, which are operating here in Britain. Some of them are even having a real estate business. A real estate business. How much does it take Britain to ban those? And where are the investigation? That's all the way in the UAE. We found out about them and we banned them, and you still haven't.
Raising money for the Muslim Brotherhood in Britain.
In Britain and also elsewhere in the Middle East, where they send in these funds to radicalize people, to make sure they become terrorists and they commit anti-Semitic crimes and so on. This organization and this real estate, literally business, they because they're smart right now. They want to make through charities and through some of the real estate businesses that they have in Britain. They fund their terrorist actions and acts in the Middle East and countries and examples that we have. And there are charities, or a charity specifically, a huge one in Britain, that's been banned in the UAE, and it's not banned in UK, and it operates and sends funds.
So enforcement is a big part of this, banning the Muslim Brotherhood, going after them, being ruthless in pursuing them via intelligence and so forth. How about there's one issue that was big in the UK, very controversial at the end of Ramadan, of public prayer, because we had this event in Trafalgar Square with many hundreds of Muslims all praying together. Nick Timothy, the MP, said this was an expression of political dominance and it shouldn't be allowed, created this huge outrage that you're being Islamophobic. What's your view of that?
Well, there are mosques, so why they can't just attend the mosques? I mean, there are Christians who attend the church when they want to pray, correct?
Sure.
And there are Jews who go to the synagogue.
But then people say, oh, but in Trafalgar Square, you've had Easter Christian prayer, you've had Hanukkah, you've had Jewish prayer. Why not Muslim prayer in Trafalgar Square? What do you answer to that?
I honestly don't know about the rules and the regulation here, and everyone has the right to practice their right of prayer, the practice, showing their religion and so on. But my point is, if there is church, there is synagogues, there is mosques. Attend those if you would like to pray. In the same time, I would listen to the lecture that's being given there rather than just a prayer. The lecture is more important than the prayer itself. The lectures, what did the lecture, did it speak about anti-Semitism? Did it speak about Islamism? Does it encourage people to separate themselves from the community, from the British morals and values? Was the British morals and values discussed there, or do they stand against it? And how many of these people stood with Britain and British citizens when the Islamic regime in Iran was targeting them in the Middle East? None. No protest whatsoever.
Let me give you, just to sharpen the question a bit. In your experience, obviously you're steeped in the Islamic world, Arabic culture, the Muslim Brotherhood, you know in detail. In your experience, is public prayer in this way an innocent expression of the Muslim faith, or is it more likely to be an expression of political dominance in the style of the Muslim Brotherhood?
If it's led by the Muslim Brotherhood, then it's political. This is the time they did the same thing in Egypt, in Rabaa Adawiya, the mosque, and the Egyptian army went in. And in the end, they had to remove them move them away from gathering there, and they start getting weapons and everything else. We've seen also in various places,
Syria.
In Syria, where they used the mosque
for prayer outside.
Yes, it was for a political reason. The Muslim Brotherhood, they do that. ISIS has done so. But of course, there are some people who are just doing it for the sake of praying. That's about it. Again, what is the need for that, for such a message? What is the need here? Are you not coexisting with the rest of the country? Is someone harming your religion? No. Because right now, as much as I see, there are churches and pubs have been brought and changed to mosques. I don't see the opposite. Did you see an opposite of someone buying a mosque and turning it to a church? I haven't seen it. I don't know if it exists or not. But you are coexisting. You have been given all the rights to do so. So I would say, if anything, that might trigger the other side, avoid it. As simple as that, because you want to coexist with the rest of the societies and things. And what I seen, for example, what I'm against, for example, and I seen in some part in Paris or even New York, they done where they closed the road. They would not be allowed to do that all the way in the Middle East. In fact, all the way in Afghanistan, they will not be allowed to do that. Close the road for the prayer or anything. Place of prayer is very clear. But in the same time, you should not stop others from carrying on with their life. You don't. What about if someone was a lady who's pregnant and then giving birth, or an ambulance that need to go to an emergency place, and you close the way just for the sake of your prayer? Your part of the prayer is that you be civilized, and also you care about the rest of humanity. We need to care about each other, not to care about my own kind only. Otherwise, what we're practicing is absolute wrong.
In the UK Muslim community, How much of it do you think is controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood?
Well, huge right now. And again, I would mention many names, but again, I understand Britain is very different than, like in US, I say it, I name everything. But this is where we reach right now. We can't name them, and this is why...
You mean the organisations or the individuals?
All the organisations or even the individuals, they exist.
You can't name them because of UK libel laws and the way it's used by Islamists.
Of course, yeah, of course. But they're huge.
Yeah.
We're speaking at least about 20% of the mosques and the schools, the Islamic schools, they are fully controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood. Charities, they're number one there. They literally control almost 90% of the charities. And they're really good funders and friends of Hamas networks in the Middle East and Hezbollah and so on. And the Muslim Brotherhoods right now, they are the Iran proxy in the West. And through the war of Iran against the Gulf countries, we saw that, how they lobbied every MP, how they lobbied the government not to make any action and look weak. And it did so. And it served the Iranian more than served any of your friends or the British interest in the Middle East.
So you're saying the Muslim Brotherhood in Britain controls 90% of the charities, 20% of the mosques?
Yes.
How much of the politics?
Well, let's say there is a huge... well, you have MPs. And all I say, see how many of them condemned the Islamic regime of Iran aggression against the British interest in the Middle East or against the British people living in the Middle East. And how many of them asked the Prime Minister or the government to take action against the Islamic regime in protection of civilization, of humanity, of British interest, of the international community and international law. The Strait of Hormuz was closed. A huge percentage of the energy and the medicine comes from that side of the world to Britain. There were about 22,000 sailors. They were stuck in the sea, and their families were asking about them. These we have politicians, they were on a quiet mood, and some of the think tanks did not push any policy or research or policy statement.
So we have Gaza independent MPs, we call them, in Parliament.
Independent, that's a nice one.
We have various different Muslim, quite radical councillors on a local level. We have a big political organisation called the Muslim Vote, which says if you're in your constituency, who to vote for according to sectarian lines. All of this,
it controls the votes of others.
Does it sound like the Muslim Brotherhood to you?
Of course, and not just that. That's their policy. If it's not Muslim Brotherhood, that's them applying the policy of Muslim. Yeah, the playbook of Muslim Brotherhood. The easy way to say that, now they're controlling who votes for what. That's dictating. Because the moment a member of the Muslim society says, no, I'm not going to vote for that, they expose them. And they start bullying them in their own community and society. It reaches all the way to the family, bullying the members of the family, not communicating with them. Later on, it goes to the marriage part and so on. Later on, it goes to the restaurant, which restaurant you attend or not. And so you'd be deprived from your society by force. And they practice that psychological war on a person. So you'd be like, I don't want to have this headache, I'll just vote for Mr. B and C, maybe Mr. Bean.
So even if they control only 20% of the mosques, for example, the influence is far greater. I mean, maybe that explains why in Britain almost no Muslim voices condemned October the 7th at the time. There was very little solidarity, nobody condemning, or very few, a few brave people, but on the whole, there was a silence.
Even about the grooming also.
And the grooming gangs. And that's because the Muslim Brotherhood maybe controlled 20% of the mosque, a lot of the charities, all the politics, but there's bullying and influence on the rest. Is that
right? Professor Ed Hussein.
He's been on this podcast.
Yes, from Columbia's University. He spoke about this. He said in one of his books that he spoke to one of the imams, about the grooming in Britain. And the Imam told him, I wanted to approach the citizens attending the mosque, and I wanted to tell them that when you see a child that's 12 years old or 16 years old or any, and you're an Uber driver, and you see them drunk, you should not start grooming them or abusing them or sexually attacking them. And instead, think of them as your child, that you should protect them and take them to their family and explain the situation. And Ed asked him, why didn't you do so? And the answer was, because these Uber drivers and others in the community will start attacking me. I don't know if that Imam is doing Machiavelli style, or is he an Imam anymore, or is he a scholar anymore? And when you reach that type of standards and morals, you have no morals, to be honest, and no values or morals stop you from protecting a child from a sexual attack or grooming. Anyone who justifies such deserve no respect from anybody on this planet Earth, and not just Britain. And my heart and his prayers stands with those families who suffered so much from this. And yes, unfortunately, you have a heart and prayers all the way from the Middle East standing with you, and then you have a government that lets you down.
So we've talked about banning the Muslim Brotherhood for to help as the first step to solve all these problems. Then you need enforcement, of course. But I want to look at the other side of the coin, because in this debate, there are people on our side of the argument, but more extreme. So people like Tommy Robinson, people like Lawrence Fox. And we've had recently a Jewish podcaster called Jonathan Sacerdotti standing with them, debating in Oxford. They seem to believe that the problem is Islam. The argument I make is the problem is not Islam. It's the Muslim Brotherhood and those associated radicals and culture. What do you say? If you've been enjoying the conversation so far, don't panic.
To catch the rest of the episode, just head over to our Substack at thebrinkpodcast.co.uk.
Or become a paid subscriber on YouTube or Spotify to get the full episodes.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment.
See you next time on The Brink.